Who would have thought just 5 years ago that the compact crossover segment would become such a popular and such an important part of the new car market? You can of course blame Nissan's Juke for establishing it in the first place, but these days there's a whole host of rivals. The latest of which is this car, the brand new Mazda CX-3. Matching style with versatility and practicality, it's a good example of just exactly why compact crossovers are so popular.
The CX-3's platform may be compact, but because of its tall roofline and raised stance, the car still looks and feels larger than expected. In some quarters, it's referred to as a small SUV, but it really is more of a crossover, combining elements of hatchback, SUV and MPV into a single form factor that has versatility at its core.
The CX-3 is a handsome vehicle with a very strong front end, this large trapezoidal grille, slim headlights, expressing a strong corporate identity as well. Of course, very high waistline, quite muscular haunches, suggesting a measure of dynamic capability which is at odds with the practical and utilitarian positioning of the segment.
Bold wheel arches, relatively big wheels, an extended wheelbase and a short rear overhang bolster the crossover's design with some SUV-style go-anywhere promise, while a large rear tailgate opens wide to allow convenient access to the boot. The design is tidy and contemporary, successfully meshing the various facets into a cohesive, visually pleasing whole.
Anybody familiar with Mazda's latest models, including the new generation Mazda 2, will recognize the cabin layout with the driver-focused switchgear. Very ergonomically efficient, very easy to use. Also this colored touchscreen display with a rotary controller in the center console.
For crossover buyers, yes, even buyers of compact crossovers, space and versatility remain key aspects. The CX-3 feels inviting and airy up front, while trying to find the optimum balance between rear seating and cargo space. There's more rear legroom than expected, but the boot is only average at 350 litres. Of course, the split rear bench seat allows seating and cargo to be varied, with a maximum cargo area of more than 1,200 litres with the seats folded flat.
Quite at odds with current trends, the CX-3 is powered by a normally aspirated 2-litre motor with a reassuring amount of power and shove, 115 kilowatt to be exact, together with a torque peak of 204 newton meters. And depending on model, you get to choose between either a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic gearbox. Drive in all instances across the range via the front wheels.
However, Mazda is almost unique in opting for a larger normally aspirated engine instead of a smaller turbo unit, and there is a penalty to pay in terms of load-out tractability and overall response. Admittedly, it's a free revving unit that enjoys being exercised, but one also needs to factor in the power loss of up to 18% at reef altitudes, which will impact on the Mazda's dynamics.
Talking of performance, we're driving this vehicle in the Cape where, of course, altitude is not an issue, so we're getting the benefit of all the engine's power output. And it is an enthusiastic engine that's quite happy to rev into the red, although I have to say, refinement-wise, it does get just a little bit rough at the top end of that rev range. Handling-wise, surprisingly nimble. The steering calibrated perhaps a bit more for assistance than absolute feedback, but I suppose you'd expect that of a car in this league. But it does really turn in very crisply. It feels very assured, certainly doesn't suffer from all that understeer that you often find with front-wheel drive cars. And then in terms of the suspension, ride refinement perhaps a little bit compromised by those big wheels and tyres.
In straight-line terms, performance is brisk rather than sporty, with a 0 to 100 km/h acceleration time in the mid-10-second bracket and 192 km/h top speed. More interesting for this car's target audience will be the fuel consumption, with Mazda claiming 6.1 litres per 100 kilometers for the combined cycle. That equates to a theoretical operating range of 890 kilometers from the 48-litre tank. The CX-3 lineup in South Africa consists of 5 models, all powered by the same normally aspirated 2-litre engine, but spanning 3 spec levels and the choice of manual or auto 6-speed gearboxes. Our test car was the range-topping Individual, which has a full house of standard features, but is only offered with the auto gearbox. On paper, the mid-range 288,000 Rand dynamic model with manual gearbox promises the keenest mix of features, performance and value.
Since emerging from Ford's shadow in South Africa, Mazda has worked very hard to re-establish the brand here. It has a modern range of products, keen pricing, and a very motivated dealer network. And judging by the way people have been reacting to this car during our test drive, it evokes a lot of positive sentiment, which of course augurs well for its sales potential here, and that despite a very competitive segment.
A free-revving 2-litre engine and 6-speed auto gearbox offer ample dynamics as long as you are prepared to use the rev range. It's even better in manual override using the shift paddles. The cabin feels spacious and it's nicely equipped, and there's ample urge with handling to match, but the boot is on the small side and it loses some refinement when pressing on.